What's up, my Palmetto Point Church family, Myrtle Beach community? I'm sure there's going to be people watching this from all different communities, but specifically Myrtle Beach is what I want to speak to tonight. I told you guys I was going to have some incredible guests with very unique perspectives on what's happening in the world around us. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. As a pastor, growing up in Myrtle Beach, been here my whole life, this is unlike anything I've ever seen, and I thought it was very important to be able to have conversations that maybe other people are afraid to have or maybe don't want to have. Maybe they're uncomfortable having. So that's the reason why I've called in some of these guys tonight to be able to speak to certain subject matters or whatever the case may be. Wherever we go, I just want to make sure that we're able to have conversation about difficult subjects. So tonight with me, I have Bishop Pennington. He is a Myrtle Beach grad, grew up in the area, moved away, and his kids actually came to church with us while he was gone, came back in, started pastoring in the area, multicultural church, and really incredible how God's kind of brought us together. Brandon Creech, had a relationship with him for 15, 16, 17 years now. Young black man, beautiful family, a bunch of kids. But Brandon is a young man who has a unique perspective in the area and also with his upbringing, and it's just really interesting. Alan Borders here. Many of you know Alan. Alan is south side of Chicago, seen a lot of stuff growing up. He got a bunch of kids too. But Alan is a friend of the church, and when he speaks, he's very soft-spoken, but when he speaks, full of wisdom. And then Terrence Butler, he is owner of ESA Fitness, local business owner. I thought having the perspective from a local business owner and what's happening with business owners and how this is affecting things, I thought was very important to us here in this Sox T High grad. So we're excited to have all of these guys here with us, local boys that can give us insight and perspective. So here's where we are. Let me just say this really quickly. I'm going to speak tonight from a biblical, spiritual stance, because obviously to me, that as a pastor, that's what matters to me. I have some ministry friends. I had about 3 today that have said, "Man, you crazy for doing this tonight. You know somebody's going to say something stupid. You know that this is going to you're going to say something and it's going to get cut and it's going to be posted and it's, they're going to tear you apart. People watching right now, they're going to tear you apart, everything you say." And I get that. I totally understand that, and I'm totally okay with that concept, because the truth is my stance on this hasn't changed in my entire time in ministry. This is not a situation where I've wavered at all. I know what this is. This is a pastor's perspective. This is a sin issue. This is a heart of man issue. This is a we need to get right with Jesus issue. I had a friend the other day told me, he's a pastor friend of mine, and he said, this is so much more than a sin issue. And man, it just didn't sit well in my spirit. And I told him, I was like, if this is more than a sin issue, then Jesus isn't the answer. That means that we as the church don't have the answer if this is more than a sin issue. And so for me, my perspective is this is a sin issue. We need to get our hearts right with Jesus. And when we get our hearts right with Jesus, His Holy Spirit starts working in us, starts transforming our hearts, and some of those prejudices that we have inside of us ultimately will die, because the Spirit of God living inside of us will try to kill that old man out. Now, it'll take some time, I know that. But I just believe above all else that this is sin. It's not okay. You need to get right with Jesus if you got some racist issues inside of your life. So that's my perspective. That's my stance, and that's where I'm gonna leave my part of it. Okay. Let me give some rules for tonight. Okay. We're here to speak love, unity. I've already told them this. We're here to speak love, unity. We're not going to trash anyone or anything. We're not going to trash the police. We're not going to trash politicians. We're not going to trash community officials. That's not what we're doing here. We're here to build unity. We're here to speak hope into Myrtle Beach, into our community. We are going to show respect to everybody that's watching who is of a different perspective than us. And I'm not talking about if you're watching and you're racist, you need to get saved. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have a different of a, hey, Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter versus police are bad, police are good. Everybody's got a different perspective. So I don't want us to be afraid of conversation, but I also want to respect everybody who's watching that has a difference of opinion than us, okay? And then, listen, it's okay if we say something that someone across the aisle from us doesn't agree with. It's okay. It's okay. If we say something that doesn't sit well with me, I'm okay with that. I'm okay getting uncomfortable tonight. And hopefully you watching online, I know this is going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people. If you'll watch this and you'll allow us to have real conversation, I think we can bring some real healing to our community, to our church specifically. As a pastor, that is, the utmost importance to me is the people that I'm shepherding. I want to bring healing there. So I think if you'll watch this tonight, you'll find some healing, you'll find some restoration in some areas that have needed it for a long time, okay? So I've given them some questions to think on, and then we'll just kind of flow in this. We don't want to get bogged down too long, so make sure, again, people, President Obama's on right now, so again, we probably are they're not going to give us long, so make sure you stay engaged in them. But quick answers, but not too quick. Let's make sure we get the meat of it, but also don't ramble. Just stay precise. I want you to tell me, as a white man, I probably don't understand discrimination and racism like you have experienced in your life. I want you to tell me of a time where you felt discriminated against, or you felt that true something that stands out, a story that stands out in your life where you say, man, this was true racism right here. This is discrimination. Because what happens in the white world, we don't understand we're not able to see through your eyes. So we don't see what true racism looks like to you, and because we're afraid to have these conversations, we don't understand the perspective. Make sense? AB, you want to start us?
Yeah, that's cool. I have like two stories real quick. My daughter, Micaiah, my middle child, she was actually at school, and she has a friend that's a little girl who's white, and she came to me. She said, "Daddy, my friend who I was really good friends with, she said another girl came to her, both of them, and said, you shouldn't be playing with Micaiah because she's brown." And so that was the first time that my daughter, dealt with that, and it really hurt her. And she was just talking to me about it, and the best thing I could do as her dad, was to, one, comfort her, and tell her that how beautiful she is. Her complexion, there's nothing wrong with her complexion, that she's amazing, and that what that girl, that little girl was taught something that from their parents. She either heard something, someone was told to her, and it wasn't right. Yep. And that what I told my daughter Micaiah was to make sure that you forgive her, and regardless, what she may have said or how it may hurt you, you still, us as like Christians, I put it in her terms as Jesus wants us to love people, even when they hurt us. And so that's one thing that my daughter experienced for herself. I wasn't there with her, but man, that's gotta be, when I think about it now, I'm like, man, she must have been she was by herself, a little child at school and losing a friend. They don't play together no more. So for me personally, I experienced, I grew up in Chicagoland area, and I really didn't experience a lot that I can remember there, but moving down here, down south, it was like a whole different thing, It's the first time I ever seen cotton fields. First time I ever working out in these places that are plantations that have beautiful homes in them. They're actually built on top of slave houses. Yeah. And I did not know that. I'm out there installing cable, and I'm reading these little posts outside these huge, beautiful homes saying this is where, this was the slave house or something like that, And I'm like, wow, this is real. People have experienced this, people have experienced this. And for me, there's times where I would be working and I'm in a certain area, and there's times where I get looked at weird. There's times where they question me more, and you can kind of get the vibe of that they really don't trust you. You know what I mean? As much as you would think that they would trust a person who's white, And there was a time where I had all my children with me, and we're at a local park that's very popular, and it's 5 of us. I got 5 children, so we're all at the park.
So you had a bunch.
Yeah, and I'm with my mom, who's from Trinidad. She's a black woman. My sister, my father's Mexican, so I'm mixed. I'm Trinidadian and Mexican. I never knew my dad, so I grew up in a black family. So we're at a local park out here, and we're all together with my kids, and there's a white family that is walking towards our direction and literally give us like the weirdest look and literally walk around us. And I was like, I looked at my sister, and she was like, yeah, that just happened. Yeah. And she's experienced it. I could say she's told me things. My sister Rebecca experienced a lot of things too. So,
Brandon.
Hi, everybody. I'd have to say, man, growing up, I was biracial. I'm biracial, excuse me. I grew up with a Southern white family, we'll say. Till I was 11, I didn't even know I had black in me, if we can be honest. It's really weird. Then once my grandmother passed away, I had to go live with my biological mother. She's white too, but her husband is African American. So I had to kind of dive into 2 cultures and learn half of my life not even knowing my own culture, not knowing who my dad was, thinking I was an Indian, not black, because they didn't want to tell me I was black. That's very weird now, growing up that way. I didn't even see myself as black, and I didn't understand what I was at the point. But I did understand something. I'm not trying to put my family or anybody on blast, but growing up, I understood that my family wasn't happy or liked the fact that, maybe I had friends that were black growing up, not knowing that there was a problem with my family. Changing over lifestyles, living with a family that, had different views, going to the culture that they had those views about, and having to live that, I kind of got the double perspective of it, where I get to understand both sides of the spectrum. But I didn't since we're just now talking about discrimination, I didn't experience a lot of discrimination growing up until maybe I teenage years, really. I remember I got my first car. I was driving down near Coastal Grand Mall here one night. I was pulled over for having a taillight out. The cop asked me if I had anything to drink that night. I obviously had not. So he asked me if it was okay for him to search my car. I was very nervous about this because I didn't know why he wanted to do this. I honestly wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing anything to cause any problem other than my taillight being out. So I was very nervous. He got me out of the car. I allowed him to do it. I had no issues with it. He called backup, as they all do. I was very scared when 3 more cops pulled up. They made me take my pants off. They made me take my shoes and my socks off. They searched my shoes under my socks. For whatever reason, they thought I was lying and I had something on me. I was horrified, and I thought, I believe they might try to plant something on me because this is just so awkward. This is so awkward. People were driving by as I'm literally in my underwear. They made me take my pants off. So once it was all done, I could put my pants on, and I thought I was going to jail for something. I was just horrified. They ended up letting me go and writing me a warning for my taillight being out. So once I left and went home, I felt it for the first time. I felt discriminated, and I said to myself, I believe they wanted me to have something on me. I believe they wanted me to fail tonight. I believe they wanted me to go to jail. It was very horrifying for me. that's not the only time. I mean, other things have happened too. I have a story that's even worse than that, but I thought that was one of the cleanest ones.
Yeah.
After those things happened, you know, I had kind of a problem with how, and again, we're not bashing anybody, but how police view young African Americans or even African Americans in general. I felt it, I seen it, I understood it. But when I tried to explain that to my friends, because I'm biracial, I have white family, I have black family, all the same. You know, a lot of folks would say things, what did you do to make them want to pull you out the car and search it? What did you say? What did you do? And it's the weirdest thing to say to people. The weirdest thing to say is, I honestly didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe it. I mean, because most of the time, that's what everybody says, right? Yeah. I just didn't have my taillight working at the time. And I got in this big frenzy, and everybody got to drive by and see me in my underwear. And it made me feel degraded. Yeah. And I couldn't really, if I can be honest, and it's not a racial thing either, but I couldn't get much sympathy from my white family, you know? Not everybody in my family, and not now. This is years and years and years and years ago. But I found I wasn't getting a lot of sympathy for them, and it seemed only African American understood what I was saying, and believe me, it took me serious. Everybody else, it was harder to, not everybody.
Because they had been through it. They understood what you were talking about.
Right. They've seen it, they've witnessed it, where others have seen it on videos on YouTube and stuff, and got to judge from just, watching and not actually being that person. Mm-hmm. So that dramatically changed my feelings towards police officers. As a young black male, even till this day, I fear getting pulled over. Yeah. I don't want to get pulled over. And I record on audio if I do, because I really just don't know. Anything can happen now. It's so common for us to be killed in the streets. It's not, you don't have to do anything anymore. I mean, it could be, you could follow all these protocols and you can listen, but things are happening to us and we're following the rules, but we're still being killed. And then when we follow the rules and do what we're asked, we're being killed. When we want to protest, when we want to go out with our signs and say, we want to change. I want to say this to everybody here. When we go out with signs and things like that, and we protest about police brutality over the years and years and years that it's been going on, I want to just say honestly, I don't think we've seen any improvement. I don't think we've seen a change as far as this decreasing. We've been out here protesting, we've been out here fighting Black Lives Matter, but we're still dying. What? My biggest question is, and it's not to white people or any specific genders, it's what do we have to do to get you to hear us? What do we have to do to make you not hate us for saying this is happening? We don't want to get violent and hurt anybody, but nothing's working for us. We are frustrated. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of things that's happening right now. A lot of frustration. We've seen it happening. We have families. We do not want our families to go through this type of stuff, and we're just frustrated. We just don't know how to express anymore. People will say, well, get out there with your sign and protest peacefully. We have. That's not changed anything over all these years. We have lists and lists of names of people that have been killed by police brutality, and we've been peacefully protesting. It hasn't worked. Now that this protest is happening, it's getting a little violent. A lot of things are getting a little out of control for everybody, and I don't agree with everything. Not at all. I don't agree with any of the violence, any of the looting, any burning down buildings, but this is the part that's going to get me kind of in it too, with people watching and things, which is okay because I'm prepared for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't agree with it, but I hear that. I hear them. I understand why they're doing this. Not the looting, but making the loud noise to say, hey guys, we've tried everything else. We've been as peaceful as we can and nothing's working. We don't know what to do anymore. We're frustrated. We don't want our family and friends dying anymore. That's just all there is to it. And we're now at a point in the country where we have to start taking steps now to figure out how to change this. We have to. And that's why I admire you so much, because you're one of the people in the community that I see as a leader that got us together today to say, I don't know if if what's right and what is the right way to go, but I know that this is a step to figuring stuff
Yeah,
out.
we got to start having conversations. I got Melton Brown. You know Melton. Melton's preaching for me on Sunday, and I think you're going to give an interesting perspective here, where Brandon's saying nothing's changed, and Melton will tell me stories of growing up here in Conway where he couldn't drink out of the same water fountain as the white people in the community. So where Brandon, as a young African American, is saying nothing's changed, you've seen the change. Yes. And so will you speak to the change, but then also to the discrimination that you felt through the years?
Yes, we have had some changes. Growing up here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, I can remember there was a theater called the Gloria Theater, and they had the downstairs that the white folks could go sit in, and then we had to go upstairs.
Yeah.
We couldn't even go to the now. Notice I'm in the generation during the height of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. So I'm a young child, 11, 12 at that time. So I heard all the great voices, and they used to tell us, well, you couldn't go down to the beach. Our parents worried about us going to the beach, and it was only 5 or 6 blocks away, But there was a beach in North Myrtle Beach called Atlantic Beach where we had to go. It was a black beach, and it's one of the last black beaches in America called Atlantic Beach right now, 14 miles north of here. President Kennedy and some others, they got together, they shot those things down, so we were able to go to the beach right here in our own community. A lot of things have changed. I remember I was of the first generation that attended integrated schools. Now, before there was integration, there was right over on Carver Street, there was George Washington Carver Elementary. And when we would leave that, we would go over to Whittemore High School. And so the African-American community had its own system of education. And you would leave George Washington Carver, you would go to Whittemore High School, then you would leave there and you would go to a historically black college or university, and so forth. Then we started integrating here in 1968. And I remember as I was about 11, going into the 6th grade. Myrtle Heights Elementary. The Myrtle Beach Junior High School, middle school is still there. I went to that junior high school. But I remember the teachers having a hard time teaching us. And I remember just phasing out, just clocking out. Smart, very intelligent, could do the work, but there were so many distractions. Here I was a young African-American kid. In a situation that I never was in before, and I'm sitting there totally distracted from my education. But I had a very nice Caucasian teacher named Ms. Johnson. She took to me for some reason. She pulled me aside like she understood my pain. And she actually educated me on the side. That's how I had to get it. And when it came time to go to the Myrtle Beach Junior High School from there, she told me, she said, Willie, we're going to allow you to go to the junior high school, even though your grades wasn't up the way they should be, but I have confidence in you. I know you can do it. And I have never failed a grade since that day. Just one act of kindness. Awesome. You never forget those things. Many, many, many changes have come. But what we're wrestling with, when you're talking about no change, what we're dealing with in the society, we're dealing with a historical wrong that has never been righted. Right. And so we know, you know, and I know that if you cover your sin, you won't prosper.
That's right.
So it's a spiritual thing that's going on here as well as a physical thing. America could be a great nation, all right? A tremendous nation, but America refused to deal with the systemic racism. And the racism is not an individual person.
Right.
I had to grow up to learn that. It's not an individual person because I've had people call me the N-word and everything. But, I'm like a duck now. You can't wet a duck. You understand? So I've come up through hard times. And so that just don't bother me. I look at that as, that's elementary. What we're dealing with the racism that is incorporated in the system. And so when we're out here screaming from a moral high ground Because you and I, we're saying from a pastoral standpoint, how come you can't see this? Fix this.
Right.
You understand? We're saying this is morally wrong. You know, if you're a racist, you're not saved. You need to stop hiding behind the cross and pick up the cross and follow him.
right.
All right, but we need to understand that when we're screaming on the streets and it's good, protesting is good, it helps our message get out. We don't condone the violence, the looting, and all of those things. But we need to understand where the problem is. The problem came from the plantations and got into the system, the banking system, the educational system, the criminal justice system, the political system. It's in the systems where the thing is going wrong. And so if we're going to deal with this America, all of us, black, white, red, yellow, and brown, if we're going to deal with it, we're going to have to change the systems. We're going to have to make sure the systems are operating fairly and justice for everybody. We got these creeds, one nation, under God. I wore the uniform of the United States Army. Many of my friends fought in war, all those kinds of things. And then when we come here, we expect to receive the same thing that any other individual would receive from his nation, whom we love. African American people love America, but America has never learned to love African American people because the injustices are systemic, is in the system, is a inherited culturally historical error that we should have faced it long time ago and dealt with it. But since we don't deal with it, every 25, 30 years, here we are again. Yeah. I feel like it's back in the 1960s. Yeah. And I understand because it's in the systems they don't hear. Can I give just one allegory? I watched a movie, and I'm going to be finished. I watched a movie called Cold Mountain. It was a movie about the Civil War. And these men up in a small town in the hills of North Carolina, many of them didn't want to fight the war because it had no basis for them. They were up in the mountains, out of the way, so they went to war anyhow. And one guy just got tired of it, and so he deserted. And it tells the story about his journey back to Cold Mountain. He had a young lady there, preacher's daughter, waiting on him that he loved deeply. But in his journey, there was one scene where he stopped by a house, a lady there, her husband had died in Petersburg in the war. She was there with a baby. And he walked up to the door. I'm a Confederate soldier on furlough. I need food and I need shelter. And so she questioned him to make sure he wouldn't hurt her and her baby. And she had a rifle in the house and so forth. But later on, some other soldiers came, and they said the same thing, basically. But they took her baby, and they laid the baby out on the cold ground, and they had her out there, and they were accosting her for food. They wanted more than the chickens. She finally gave in that you can have the hog, but if you take the hog, I'm just as good as dead. As the baby was lying on the ground, the 3 soldiers was walking around, accosting her, trying to get more and more out of her, and she was screaming to the top of her voice. She said, "He's just a baby. Why can't you see that? Why don't you understand? It's just a baby." And then her voice got more and more aggressive, and she said, "What is wrong with you? Don't you see that you're committing an immoral act?" And that's what she said, but those soldiers tuned out. And I said, that's what the system is like. We've been screaming for years, black, white, red, yellow, and brown across America, that this is wrong. Why don't you see that? The system is cold.
Follow that.
Go for it, buddy.
I could listen to you talk all night long, man. I love that.
Well, man, he's always been a good speaker. I've said a couple times to listen. A time I've actually have like 2 similar because we're around pretty much the same age. I've heard those stories from my grandmother, her can't go to Soccer City because it's all white, having to go all the way from Burgess to Conway to Whittemore. Me personally, me and my cousins and my friends were leaving out. I think we went to some party. Got pulled over for going 45 into 45. He had a Maxima with some rims on it, tinted windows. It wasn't like it was, the brand new car, but they pulled us over. Officer comes up to the window. Where you going? They didn't ask for no license or registration. Where you going? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Why are you out this late? Question after question after question. And we're like, I asked, so what do we do? You're not allowed to ask the questions. I'm like, man, okay. So after 10 minutes of questioning, they didn't make us get out the car, but they let us go, followed us all the way until we turned on 707. I've been followed. I went around this white guy. He followed me from 707 all the way to the airport. That's far.
Yeah.
That's far. I'm turning just to make sure, Same story when they see a lady walking. The sidewalk is 10 feet. She gets on the grass. And I'm like, lady, I can't even reach and touch you.
Yeah.
But it's man. So I've experienced some business-wise. I'm putting on a lot of events, and they look at me. I get a lot of no's. Even downtown, downtown somewhere, they look at us different, so they expect things different. But when you go somewhere else, you don't expect the same thing because of what they're trained. Like it doesn't. It's just like unfair across every single board, whatever it is. It doesn't even anything you can think of. We never are on a level playing field. Period.
Yeah.
So I'll get into the other stuff once we get to the next question.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you go ahead, my brother.
Man, I think for a lot of white folk that just watch that, they feel uncomfortable. And in their head, they're saying, well, I got pulled over one time and I got followed one time. That's how white people try to, and again, I say white people. I don't mean, I don't want to paint broad brushes because I feel like that's the most dangerous thing that we can do. And I love that you said we find out that racism is a person. That's you're racist, not a color of skin, not a we find out that it's a person behind that racism. And so I feel like a lot of racist people just watched that and got really uncomfortable and are trying to almost debate you guys sitting in their car or sitting in their house and debating to say, I've seen that myself. I've seen what you say myself. I think we were talking about this before these guys got here. I think the difference is we may have experienced it once. We're not experiencing it every step
year.
of every, right. You know what I mean? It's
Every
not.
year, every day people
Yeah.
look at you. It's just ridiculous.
And listen, I have the utmost respect for our police force. And I think they get a terrible rap through this. And I'm sorry. I'm not worried about making them uncomfortable or anybody else watching uncomfortable. I'm sorry that you guys get a bad rap. To me, the police force is very similar to pastors. You'll know what I'm saying. A pastor who has a moral failure, and then all pastors get thrown into the bus of, oh, we are womanizers and we steal the money and all we want is their money and all that sort of stuff because a pastor made a moral failure. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with cops. The majority of pastors out there are really good, God-loving, God-fearing, people who just want to further the kingdom of God and help people out. There are some bad apples. And it's the same way to me with the police force. And so I honor all of you guys watching. I don't think that this is a broad brush. And I think that, again, to make people uncomfortable, I think we also have to look at it and say there is a reason why cops are following the, not that your car was lowered down, but the lowered car with the rims, because it's a stigma attached to it that says these are people who are into no good because of whatever the music is saying or whatever the situation may be. So there's almost a red flag waving to say there's a possibility of this being no good. Black, white, doesn't matter. When they see certain you know, they say whenever you're driving a red car, Simeon drives a red car. When you drive a red car, cops see that and immediately are checking, you know, your speed more than they are at a white car or a black car. So I think there is a part of this that, again, I feel like I'm trying to justify for policemen, but it's more for the good guys who are just trying to keep people safe than it is for the bad apples that we've had bad experiences with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, good. You want to say something?
My whole family, my father, my uncles, been in law enforcement.
Yeah.
I was almost in law enforcement. I respect it to the utmost. But it seems to me when they get in an authoritative position and they've almost never had the leadership in their life growing up or somebody to pat them on the back. Now they get to where they can say, you're going to do what I say or else, because they got a gun and they feel threatened, but you don't have to kill somebody to do it. And even when I was taking my get my CWP license, the dude said, yeah, you know, you should tell the officer that you have a gun in the car. I looked at this dude. I said, you want me to tell him that I have a gun? What's the proper thing to do? I said, that's not about to happen. I'll tell you that right now. There's no way. He said, well, it's a sign of respect. Yeah, for y'all, not for me.
Yeah.
I would like to go home.
Yeah.
You know, period. I have a son. I want to see him grow. But we just can't do that. But it seems like these officers that's doing it, we got to check their history from when they were little and get into their mental capacity, because when they get in authoritative positions, they abuse the heck out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what seems to be the problem is mental illness. That's what's going on, and that's what it seems what's going on now.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we're going to run out of time. So I want to get to some things that I feel like are beneficial to me. Let's talk. Me and Pastor Willie, Bishop Willie, will both just sit here and listen here and let you three tell us, what would you like to see the church do better to address this subject matter, racism? Any one of you that want to start, I'll let you go. Go ahead, Brandon. You got the mic up to you.
Right off the top of my head, man, when I think about like church and how they can address stuff like this, I would say even something like this is huge, where you're bringing people in from the community that are different, and we're not forced to sit here, but we're here and we're learning. We learn about each other. We learn about what we go through in life. Some people only want to live their life by a certain way. Like maybe they were grown up a cowboy. Their dad was I want to be a country boy all my life. So they won't even learn about other cultures. Yeah. You know, in the church, I think it would be, you know, it's a great thing that, especially you, to bring other cultures in. Multicultural churches are wonderful. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're going to a church, or if we know of a church that is just, you know, one ethnicity, maybe sometimes we'll get some friends that are other ethnicities to go up, introduce them, not to be causing a problem, but to show these people, hey, this is a person from a different ethnicity. They want to worship the Lord with us too. They have the same feelings as you. We can all do this together. We don't have to have different churches. We're all going to go up there and be with him together. Yeah. You know, we're not going to be in separate churches when we go up there. Yeah. So here, that's something that, you know, I love about this church. And other churches that aren't doing that, I would say that's something that we could start. Trying to encourage just one nationality in a church. Yeah. God's not going to look down and say, oh, they're all the black people worshiping me. They're all the white people worshiping me. He's going to want he wants you all together worshiping. Yeah. You know, and that's coming from me, who I'm not the biggest religious person, but I can.
He's
I
running
can
from the
see
Lord, y'all. I
see
it on Facebook
right.
Live. He's running.
I can see it. It's about bringing people together. Yeah. And that is the start. Getting the different people together, and sometimes like this, having these conversations and saying, I know we don't want to talk about this, but we got to talk about this.
I'll say from a pastor's perspective, Bishop Pennington will be able to agree with me, I'm sure. This multicultural church is probably one of the hardest hurdles to jump inside of the church. I've always wanted a multicultural church. I promise you, AB and Tamika, if you're out there watching, Joe and Janine Anderson, I'm telling you, whenever we'd have black families walk in and they'd, just not enough black families around here. And you're like, how do I stop that? And finally, I took Joe and Janine one day to lunch and I said, if you'll just sit with me for 6 months, just stay here. Don't leave for 6 months. I promise you, just the comfort of you sitting there and other black families walking in and seeing that, hey, we're not a racist church. We want multicultural people here. You sitting here will open up the doors for other people to feel comfortable walking in. And so for all you, because I know there's a ton of pastors watching, there always is on Wednesday night. I promise you, every one of you are saying, I hear that and I want that in my life. I promise you, it is one of the hardest hurdles that you will jump. And find a couple, take them to lunch, and say, just trust me for 6 months. That's some great advice I can give to you.
Well,
What can the church do, Terrence?
I appreciate you for doing this.
Thank you for
So-
accepting, man. Thank
Yeah,
you, seriously.
This is huge. We won't know the impact until we press end and we see
That's
all
right.
the comments.
That's right.
But I think I'm gonna go at it a little different. I think music is a huge aspect, bringing gospel into predominantly Caucasian churches.
Yeah.
Is huge. Music flows through us. Our culture is music. Like that's us. If you bring that may just loosen it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And not speaking to you guys, anybody that because I know you, I've heard what you talk about. I've heard you. I would like for those pastors out there to speak the truth about what's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And the one reference I would use is the description of Jesus. It says that he had wool hair and copper skin, copper feet. But we look in these churches and we see blue eyes and blonde hair. So it's like, it's in the, there's several, Moses' wife, Zipporah the Ethiopian. Like that's a lot of things. And I'm not sure they actually even know that, or they actually preaching that. So if they believe that he was probably brown, maybe they were like, oh, maybe it would take a shield off,
Yeah.
and they will invite us to church. Like this, it's almost like that simple,
Yeah.
but still kind of hard. But I don't know if they're actually preaching the truth of what's in the Bible. There's so many different stories that, all the books that has been lost out of the Bible. Like, hey, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
We're in the Bible. Let's talk about it. But if you're not going to talk about it, then there's still going to be a division because it starts with him, period. So if it starts with him, it has to end with him. So it has to be accepted somewhere. Like that's what I think. you know.
My big thing, with Scripture is from the beginning. If we believe Scripture from the beginning, we all come from one man and woman, Adam and Eve. If we believe Scripture, so every single one of us are that same bloodline, Adam and Eve. According to Scripture in Revelation, where you're talking about, there's not going to be different parts of heaven. In Scripture, Revelation 7, it talks about every tribe, every tongue, every nation coming together to worship Him. So from the beginning to the end, we're in this together, and I agree completely. For some reason in the middle, and listen, this is what the church does. I love the church. You watching know that. I believe that the church is what's going to make the community healthy. A healthy local church will breed healthy families, will breed healthy communities, will breed healthy, the United States of America will be healthy when the local church is healthy. I believe that. But I also think that we in the local church are afraid to talk about subjects that are uncomfortable to people sitting in our congregation because we're afraid of how they will take those subjects. So I agree completely, man. Let's talk about it. My ministry friends watching it, don't be afraid, man. Talk about it. AB.
Yeah, I was going to say that, we need as a church, can't be afraid to talk about issues, things that we see out in the world that are contrary to the Word of God. I would say to churches that are predominantly white, not to be afraid to engage your community. You know what I mean? That who have a community of black culture or brown or Hispanics. You know what I mean? Black people. Don't be afraid to go out there and reach out to people. If you're that church or that pastor that wants a multicultural church, you have to be willing to go out there and be a blessing to them, serve them, look for ways to get involved in your community. Because when you do that, I really believe that God will start opening up your heart to see things in a different perspective, see things in their perspective. It'll give you understanding what they deal with, and also show those people will start opening up their hearts and saying, you know, maybe not people who are white, you know what I mean, are going to treat me a certain way or look at me a different way, and which will be, they'll be more willing to come to your church or even get to know you and really actually want a relationship with Christ, because that's really what it's all about. It's about having a relationship with Christ.
I think really quickly, I think you being half Mexican and half African American, I think is really cool, because the truth is probably the next most, prejudiced group of people is the Mexican culture, and so I think that African Americans right now are fighting a cause that's probably going to open doors for the Mexican culture. And I'm saying Mexican, I don't mean that in any disrespect. I'm not talking about all Central American countries. I'm talking about seriously like Mexico, seriously. Like, so I think if we're not careful in this, we will win a battle for the African American community and not allow it to be that ripple effect that actually brings change even into the Mexican community as well.
I love that you said that, because that has to happen. If we're fighting for it now, if we eventually get this to happen, we have to fight for it for everybody.
Right.
And I'm just glad I'm sorry. When you brought that up,
I think
it blew my mind.
I think this is where the Black Lives Matter movement is important and valuable, but if we're not careful, we're going to lose out on the ripple effect of it. And that's both ways. Right. If we're not careful, we're going to lose out on the people coming behind you guys. And I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about this generation. Like you said, every 30 years it's coming around. If we're not careful, we're going to lose out on the people that are coming behind this movement to say, man, if we would have just shifted our thought pattern just a little bit, we could have really affected change for that group as well and for that group as well. So go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Historically, it has always been true when the African American community unite and begin to fight for civil rights, the women's rights, and all the other groups that needed some attention or needed some laws passed. They were bandwagon on that civil rights movement, and they themselves would get a better service, better goods because of what African Americans have done, sacrifice, and and I won't say that arrogantly, but it seems that the two greater cultures in this country is always between the black and the white. We've always had that issue going on, and so we always have to lead the way for other groups coming behind us, and all of the other groups that had some arguments during the 1960s, they united with the civil rights movement, bandwagon with it, and they themselves got better goods and services. That's and right. Yet we ourselves lost out on a whole lot of things because, we right back to ground zero again. Mm-hmm. Even though we've seen measured changes in some areas, once again, back to that systemic. It's a disease. It is demonic at its best. And it is a spiritual warfare as well as a physical warfare. And we need to know historically what happened in this nation to cause this, the times when it should have got better, people get in office that have a narrow mind, and they feel like, okay, I want my people to prosper, but everybody else, I could care less. America can only be as great as its weakest links. If everybody's not making it, this country may appear to be making it for a while, but eventually what's going to happen, those weaker links, is going to drag this unanswered question is going to drag this country back into the quagmire of what we're dealing with today. And it's going to happen. And I mean, come on, I've been here long enough, and of course my mom and that generation saw some greater things than I have seen. But it happens over and over and over and over again because we refuse. And the church, if my people that are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from our wicked ways, stop hiding behind the cross, pick it up and follow Jesus. Live it out because, you know, I pastor a multicultural church. And let me tell you something. I had to jump a hurdle. I love those people, black and white, and all that come there. And I'm going to preach the truth, you know, because, I mean, I'm not scared of man when it comes to that. I'm going to stand flat-footed, and I'm going to tell what thus saith the Lord. That's right. Bottom line, you know, let the chips fall where they may. That's in God's hand. He can defend me on that. But if we're going to fix it, we're going to have to really be serious about fixing it because the church can fix it, can heal the land, and can get the land blessed.
Amen.
You know, and it's okay.
No, I agree completely with you. I know I got two that have to leave in just a few minutes, so I'm gonna end here and just a quick answer from you. Brandon talked about it earlier that we're not gonna fix this tonight, right? So I'm big on what's the win? What's the win from this conversation? What is the thing that as a business owner watching, or a young black man watching, or a older white lady from my congregation watching, as people watching, what's the win for tonight? What is the thing that we want to take away from here, or that we say, hey, we won tonight if this happens? Anybody that wants to start, I'll let everybody get a chance. And again, let's be quick because I got two of you that got to leave in the next 4 minutes.
From tonight, our group specifically, or for what's going on in the nation?
No, the people watching right here specifically. What's the win? I don't think we can change the nation tonight.
Right,
You know,
absolutely
So
not.
let's be realistic that there's conversations happening right now inside of cars that to me a win for me. The win is right. The win to me is mom and dad sitting in their car or sitting at home watching this, and their children saying, hey, Mom, why does Pastor Jamie have 4 black guys around him? What's he talking about? And then mom and dad gets an opportunity. This is from my congregation. I'm talking about my congregation that's watching. They get to have real conversation about what's happening in the world right now and why Pastor Jamie is trying his best to be in the middle of it, saying we need healing in our community. Myrtle Beach specifically, because that's where I pastor. So what's the win tonight? You're here for a reason. You gave up your night. What's the win? Go ahead, Terrence.
I think the win is that ears are listening, and we actually got in our car and came here and spoke about it, and people see our faces, and that means we're not scared to say anything. And even if someone wanted to personally contact us and say, hey, what can we do? If the city of Myrtle Beach personally contact us and say, what can we do? There are other things we can do.
Yeah.
There are several things we can do, but it's for I believe it's more for that generation, the 10, 11, the 8, the 9-year-olds. That's who needs to hear this.
Yeah.
Because the 45-year-old cops,
Ain't
they're
changing
gonna kill them by next month.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's the kids. However, the people that are hurting, which is us who has been suppressed, y'all need to do something to help us as well. Period. So that's a conversation.
Yeah.
You know. So
Absolutely. Brandon.
I'd say a win tonight for me personally would be if somebody out there was listening to this and maybe they did have some feelings in them towards maybe Black lives. Maybe they had negative feelings. maybe, hopefully, I know we didn't get too deep into a lot of different things, but maybe somebody saw this and said, I'm not living right. My thoughts towards African Americans, my thoughts towards different people other than me, or just people in general, aren't right, and we have to change the way that I have to change, whoever's listening, the way that I view this, because it's becoming such a big problem in America. I'd be very happy about that. Secondly, the one thing I would take as a win, man, we a couple of us tonight have talking about issues with police. I'm hoping that the police can hear us and take some of the people, even if it's a couple, can start figuring out actions to take. I just want to say this because I know everybody's on a time frame, and I wanted to say it earlier, but I didn't get to. A lot of rioting, a lot of protesting happening right now because a man's life was taken from police brutality. This is happening a lot of times. I feel like next month it's going to happen. We would like to see, myself specifically, we want to hear what's happening. Who's talking to who about making new protocols, like he said, new things where it can help to limit this. You know, are we protesting and nobody's talking about what we're going to do to change it? Are we protesting and hoping that this is over forever? I really feel like we want to see this change.
They
We
need
don't
to hold
wanna-
them accountable.
Yeah. We want to see where people, not every white person, but we just want to see where you understand, you hear us, you feel us, and that you're like, we're going to take the changes. Here's the changes we're going to make, America, to stop this from happening, or at least limit it from happening. We have new procedures in play now that's going to make it really difficult for a man to get killed in cold blood and a police officer walk away and nothing happened to him. We're going to hold people accountable now.
And let me just say that as all of, because I know you're screaming right now and you're going, that didn't happen. He was arrested. He's charged with murder. So that didn't happen. And you know what I mean? He walked away, yes, but he is arrested and charged with murder. You know, so I don't want us to paint a different picture than what happened.
Right. Yeah. He was arrested. What I'm saying is that for this specific case, we want to see it for all the cases. We want to see if a white man or a black man's killed by a police officer, that now there's a procedure in play. Well, let's put them in this procedure and see if it was okay or if it was not okay. If it was not okay, then that person will be held responsible as a civilian would be held responsible, and just not because he's a part of the community and it's okay. We can get you out of this. This is your job. You know, I think that would make me feel good if even a police officer could reach out to me personally. I have a son as well. I have 3 sons actually, and I do get nervous.
Kids, I tell y'all.
Right, I get nervous about that, about police officers. I have a weird feeling with them, and I don't want it to be that way. So I guess from out of this, as we've talked earlier, if there's a police officer out there, feel comfortable enough to reach out to me. I would love to talk and try to get some understanding and some clarity out of my heart from things that's happened to me in the past, and kind of what the future holds for this whole epidemic that's happening, and what we're doing to we can't fix it completely, but we can work on it. And I just want to see what the progression is, and just to kind of help my mind, to help me thinking of my son growing up, and your son growing up, and your son growing up, and knowing that they're going to be okay, and that this rarely happens now. This was something that happened back in you know, this time, but it's over, and we're moving forward, and I'd really love that.
So let me ask, and again, we got to go. I know. I'm trying.
You're all right.
Really quickly, is it that it doesn't happen again, or that when it happens, justice is served?
Right.
Because I think those are two different
Right.
things, and those are. I think as officers in your family,
Right.
I think this is one of the hardest jobs in the world to decide. I got to go home to my family, so I've got to pull a trigger here.
Right.
And so is it we don't want this to happen again, or we want to make sure justice is served? Because to me, those are two completely different
right.
things. Go ahead, either one of you. Go ahead.
It's happening to black people though, so they can just stop killing black people. Period. Like, It's not happening to as many. Yes, there's more white people, but why is it happening to more black people? That's it.
So again, this is where things are going to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Statistics say white people are killed more often by cops than black people.
Right.
That's statistics.
I've actually heard the statistics.
So what happened in Minnesota is cold-blooded killing. That dude needs to go
Right.
to jail forever.
Right.
You know? So I think that's the uncomfortable conversation that me from a white perspective, I'm saying, do you want justice or do you want this to never happen again? Because to me, those are two completely
Right.
different conversations.
Justice is one thing. We obviously want justice, but to say that we can stop it from happening, we can't stop it from happening. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
We know it's going to happen.
Because there's evil in the heart of man, right?
Everybody's different. We can't hold everybody accountable because we know they're going to do it. You know, there's good people like I would say all of us are, and there's people that don't care about what we're talking about right now. So we're not going to be able to stop it. I just want to know that it's fair that if it happens, that hey, this is horrible that this happened, but this man is held accountable for it. And once that's happened, like this gentleman got held accountable for this. Other cops right now that are dirty. Not every cop's dirty, but the ones that are cringing right now, saying my everyday life when I go out and make it hard for these people, I might not be able to do that right now. And that's something that some of these guys do. We've seen it on every type of broadcast and throughout life. We can't deny. So ultimately, again, we just want to know that if it does happen, that person's going to be held accountable. It's not he's with us and it's okay. Sure. And he didn't kill maybe a young blue-eyed white girl. He killed a young black male. He's okay. We'll get him out of this. We want equality with that. You know, that's really frustrating, man. And that's the biggest part of it. We just want to be equal. We just want to know that our families are growing up together because we all worked just as hard to get to where we are in our lives, and that, you know, something crazy is not going to happen to us where we're like, oh, well, we're black, so we have to take that L. We can't talk about it, or we'll seem like we're being too much if we talk about it, or, you know, we just want the equality where there's no need to talk about it. Everybody knows the same thing. That man did something wrong. Let's figure out if he did it for the right reasons, for the wrong reason. Is it for the wrong reason? Then we have to deal with that accordingly.
And I think again, here goes. I think everybody saw the video and said, absolutely wrong. That is not at all able to be tolerated. That man deserves life in prison. I don't think there's too many people that saw that and said, even whenever, because a lot of times the phones only start capturing the very end of the scenario, and so you'll hear a lot of people say, let's see what happened leading up to this. I don't think this is one of those cases. This is one of those cases where immediately everybody said, that dude deserves to go to prison for a long time. And so for me, I'm glad that this has caused this conversation, but I also don't want to lose focus of, you know, the narrative here. If justice is being served, what we've got set up has worked in this particular case. Right. We should, instead of throwing rocks, we should applaud what's happening in Minnesota and saying, hey, it's working. However long it took, okay, whatever, but, you know, even today I saw they ramped up the murder charges to, you know, another degree. So it is working. And so again, I don't want to lose track of the fact that justice, if in only one case, because I know what my friends are doing on there. That's only one case. What about all the other cases? You know, like, and for me, I think sometimes we so quickly lose focus of what happened there, and we take our eyes to looters and protesters and everything else here, and we lose focus of what happened here. What happened here was unacceptable, and a man lost his life, absolutely unacceptable. From a ministry perspective, from a pastor's perspective, murder is absolutely unacceptable. So I can't stand here and say, you know, anything other than that. And I don't think anybody watching would. I think we have seen in this case that what we've wanted in the past, in this case, has come to pass. We've wanted in the past justice to be served on that cop, and in this case, it has. So as much as it's awkward to say, I think, go ahead, I hear you, I'm ready.
It's twofold because we do want justice. Justice was served. And then it just opens up the other door to saying, for us, we're tired of seeing this happen to us, that people that look like us. And then it opens the door of like, why did he do it?
Yeah.
Then the race plate comes into it. Now all of our history comes into it. And now it's just, it leads to conversation. And then and everybody was like, well, he shouldn't have did this. Well, man, he probably wasn't doing nothing. So it just opens so many doors when things like that happen. Yeah, justice was served. Great job. It did happen. Thank you, Minneapolis. That's where it's at,
Yeah.
Minneapolis. Yep. But then it opens another door because we just tired of seeing it happen.
Right.
And this time, it was served. Thank you.
It's the wound that you picked the scab, and now it's bleeding
so
again.
Yeah, so it was like,
Yeah.
man, we done seen this.
Yeah.
Over and over and over, unarmed man. So it's, come on, man. So we have to actually attack the real problem.
Which is, from the pastor's part, the heart of man.
Exactly.
You know?
The second phase of this is that now that he's been served, all of them been served, now the second half to this thing is that prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced.
Sure.
And it's hard because in America, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Praise the Lord for that, right?
And so praise God
Facts.
for it.
Yeah.
But now, that
He
second
said, "I
phase,
agree," yeah.
That second phase, but I believe that this really could set the precedent for seeds for a new beginning
Yeah.
in cases like this. That this thing has to be done right.
Agree.
All right. There has to be justice all the way through.
Yep.
There's got to be a sentence that fits the crime.
Yep.
And once the nation do that, I think we will set a precedent for any other police officer, and I have police officers friends, set the precedent for anybody that commit this type of murder in uniform will be sentenced, to the fullest extent of the law.
Agree completely. Listen, I want to do this again. So if you guys will, I would love to do this again. And I'm sorry we got to go. I love you guys. Thank you for